Hi, I'm Kay Liotta. In case you didn't know, my husband was a former councilman of Ward 3, and we met Shayla some time ago, and he and I have both been very strong supporters of Shayla over the period of time. He took her under his wing, trained her, mentored her, and we both agreed that she would make a very good person in the council, and now we both agree that she'd make an awesome mayor. I think she'll do an outstanding job for us. She has the knowledge, she has the youth, and she has the background and the resources to help this city become a better city. And we both, if Vincent was sitting here right now, he would endorse her with me as mayor of our city. We need fresh blood for this city. I think that you should give her a chance. I will. And if Vince were here to tell you, he'd tell you, this kid's got it. She's going to do right by you. Thank you. What are your positions and your thoughts about being a mayor for this city? I mean, what do you think that your qualifications would enhance your obligations?
Having 25 years experience in public administration, having gone to law school, worked for the public defender's office, worked for Cleveland Municipal Court as a mediator and a law clerk, being the director for the Office of Minority Health for Public Health, working for the County Board of Health, working for the Postal Service even for many years, going into the homes, meeting families. I think all of those things help to make community.
Okay, well, with all of that administration background, I don't see any reason why you couldn't answer any questions that people may have, or for any other reason that a council person or anybody that works in the city couldn't come to you and say, hey, how do we do this? Or how do you do that? Without having to go all the way downtown and hunt somebody up, say, well, I don't know what to do. Well, your mayor knows. I mean, she's got all the background. Why can't you talk to her?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important for someone to fully understand government, the bureaucracy, and its, inner workings. Each branch of government is going to be very different, obviously. Each city is going to be very different. There's not going to be anything that's perfect. However, knowledge is power. And if you can share that knowledge with other people to make the community better, why would you not want to do that? I never planned to run for office first and foremost. Never was that in my plan. Maybe a thought as a teenager growing up, watching and learning about Stephanie Tubbs Jones and Shirley Chisholm. Maybe a small thought there. Outside of that, it wasn't really a goal of mine. I always wanted to be a public administrator.
Well, who talked you into this? Did my husband really twist your arm to get into this? I know he was a mentor for you. I know that, and he was extremely proud of you.
So actually, I met Vince when I announced that I was running. It was so funny because he called me up and he said, hey, young lady. And I said, my name is Shayla Davis. And he said, hey, young lady, I want to meet with you. And at the time, Malek King was my campaign manager. So I said, this man, Vince Liotta, called me. He wants to meet with me. He's part of the Democratic Party. I want you to go with me. So we met over at Starbucks in the summer of 2017, and we were sitting outside. And you want a drink? You want a drink? I said, no, we're fine. And he goes, well, listen here. I looked you up. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then I said, what do you mean, what am I going to do? So we had this like banter back and forth. We talked for about 30 minutes. And he said, kid, I like you. You have my support.
He had a lot of pride in you and took a lot of pride in you. He didn't care what anybody else thought because he knew.
I was just
and he was going to say, he would have said right up front, whether it was the mayor or anybody, if you didn't like it, pound salt. This is my choice.
That was one of the things I was going to say. I remember when he said he was willing to endorse me, and he said, I don't care what the rest of them say. I like you. You're the best person for this job. And then he went on to tell me several people that I wouldn't say had conflict with, but these conversations, because he didn't go with the culture and the group that he was a part of. He saw something in me and believed in my care and concern for community. that is why personally talking to people, one of the strengths I believe I have is not my education, has nothing to do with that.
No, it's from inside.
It's my relationship building. I love people. I love serving people. Crazy, because it is stressful. It is not easy, but I feel that we have a responsibility to make people feel good, feel heard, and included and protected in every space that we are in. And I don't know if I've ever even told you this story. When I got my first job, it was my first job, but government job. I worked in their housing department. It was the public housing department, and people would come in and they would get their applications for public housing. We sat behind this bulletproof glass and we had the turn thing that went around, and we would push the button to talk to people. And one of the young ladies that was training me, she said, we don't help the clients when they come up. You give them an application, they've got to complete it. You don't answer any questions. You don't do any of that. And I thought, okay. This one day, this older gentleman comes in, gets an application, and he keeps coming back to the window. Well, what do I put here? Well, what do I put there? What do I put there? I'm young, I'm naive, right? I'm 18, 19 years old. So I didn't fully really understand. So I kept answering the question. I can't remember the girl's name that was training me, but she said, we don't do that. He's got to figure it out. And I said, well, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. He came back up again, and it was the signature part. And he said, what do I put here? And it clicked in my head.
Can't read.
Doesn't know how to read.
Oh my God.
I had not experienced that. My father talked about that. My grandmother talked about that on my dad's side. But, I grew up in the 70s and in the 80s where most people, are illiterate, So as soon as I thought of it, I looked at her and I said, I think he can't read. I got up, I walked out into the lobby because we had a door on the side. And I said, sir, come here. I took him to the back table, looked at the application. It was a mess because, he kept coming up. He was embarrassed to say he was there to get help, an agency that's there to help you to get housing. And he's embarrassed to get the help that he needs while he's there to get help. How much sense does that make? None.
It's a little bit of pride lost.
Yeah. And it's very demeaning. Yes. It's very demeaning. I'm here to get help, and you're denying me of the very help. So I ended up getting a new application. I completed it for him. We're here to serve. That is when it fully clicked for me. That systems don't operate adequately, the very systems that are there to help people. And people, we create the discourse and systems.
I guess we're going to end up in a really long conversation because I'm really interested in all of this. I know where you're coming from because I've seen it myself on how I interact with people. Just like you helped that poor little man that couldn't read, he probably got a little place of his own.
And it's not even about me. It's about my ability to be able to serve him adequately. I don't know if he got housing, but what I truly believe and I walked away with in my heart was that
he has a chance.
Whatever made him not feel confident enough or comfortable enough in the very space of help to say he needed additional help, I changed it, if only just in that moment. Because I was there. I didn't go and ask, well, can you read, sir? Are you illiterate? I didn't say anything. I understood and I went into action. That's cool. All he said was thank you. He left. I never saw the man again. But that really started the makeup of, I still get emotional about it. I mean, there's a few stories I have, but still, I am a servant leader. Counsel is great because it gives me the platform to serve people in a way that I won't be able, I can't do just a Shayla Davis, but serving people, I've always done that. And that won't ever change.
Okay.
I believe that we, the constituents, we control government. Government exists to benefit us and the greater good.
You took the words out of my mouth.
That's why, when I ran in 2017, I think my tagline was a voice for the voiceless. I believe that government should reflect the very community that it represents. So government, whoever sits in those seats, should look like the community. That's very important to me. But people matter. You know, after getting on council, what I found in the community is that we didn't have a very engaged community. I wasn't used to that because working in public administration and all the different departments, people are always calling or needing something, and I'm there to respond to that. So for me, I found it really interesting. Some things, I mean, residents call you for that you really have no control over as a council person, but I found it very interesting that people just weren't engaged. People didn't understand the difference and the powers between the council body, legislature, and the administration, the mayor. People didn't understand that council is not an employee of the city. People just don't understand those basic fundamental things. They don't understand their power. I remember people saying, we can go to council meetings. People still ask that today. The meetings are for you. Those are the public meetings. The reason it's set up that way is because government must be transparent for the people. So if there's a question or concern, people then get to ask because we're there to represent the greater good of the community. That is why it exists. That is why it is critical. And I came up with a new tagline: an engaged community is a strong community. And when you think about communities that are very strong, it's because those voices are reigning, the voices of the people. They are speaking either in tandem with their government leadership or they're speaking outside of them, but they are raising their voices to be heard.
That's truth. I mean, if you sit there and somebody's banging you on the head and you're not saying anything, eventually you're either going to say ouch or you're going to get up and say that's enough.
Yeah.
So whatever your complaint is, that's what city council is for. Your people are to be heard. And if you can't open your mouth, then nobody can do anything for you.
And some of it is a little bigger than that. Like yesterday, I was on a call with the White House. It was my first White House call, too. I felt very special. But the White House call was for the American Recovery Plan that the new administration has put in place. And I got a call yesterday from a resident who has gotten a forbearance on their mortgage this entire time. Well, that ended as of March 31st. And so we were talking, interestingly enough, the guy's name that's a part of the administration was Barack. And we were talking to him and he was talking about the funding that's coming to the state of Ohio that will also be coming to municipalities and all of that, you know, depending on who applies for what. And so since the housing crisis still exists, but that moratorium has ended, what's happening to the homeowners and those renters who could potentially get evicted? And I was sharing with him how the resident called me and they were very concerned because their circumstance hasn't changed. They can't afford to pay their mortgage. Their bill is, I think she said, like $8,900 because she hadn't paid her mortgage the entire time of COVID because she has not been working. She did get unemployment, but I guess some other things or whatever. And she was just in fear. Well, what I found out is that Fannie Mae and what's the other one? Freddie Mac, those two federally backed housing loans and funding sources, they can't just automatically foreclose on your home. Those lenders, they have to go through a process. They sign something with the government. So I was able to just call her back and reassure her of that. I don't know if she'll get the money to get it covered, but I know right now she won't be homeless. So we kind of have to be innovative and show up in spaces to represent people. Everyone is not calling about the noisy dog. Everyone is not calling about a tree. The small businesses in the community, they're important. I went to every business in Ward 4 and just introduced myself. It was amazing to me how people were like, oh, okay, you're the councilwoman. Oh, I've never had this before. And I'm not saying that I'm a perfect person. That's not what I'm saying at all.
But you have to make yourself available. They won't know you're available if they don't know what you look like or don't hear your voice and don't know your phone number.
Right. And in a community, it takes the businesses, the local government, and the residents to make a strong community. Everyone has a part to play. Mm-hmm. And we all should be interested in playing that part, or we're never going to have a strong community.
I think once the people understand what the capacity of a council person is and the background capacity you have to offer and share with them, they're going to be a better person saying, well, how about that? We can actually call and find out some information instead of say, can you call back tomorrow? Or can let me find out? Or, just a blockade there where they just don't want to bother because nobody will give them answers. And I think you're a person that can actually give answers.
I truly care. And I tell people all the time, if you may not like my answer, but I'm going to give you an answer. That's the one thing that I'm committed to.
That's Vincent. Put those words in your mouth.
Yep. If you may not like it, but you're going to get it.
You know how you would feel if you were in that situation and you see somebody that's close to that situation, if not worse. And it's like if you don't do anything, you're kicking a dog to this corner. I mean, these people in Garfield, yes, they're getting younger over a period of time, but there's a lot of people in my age group and my girlfriend's age group that we didn't grow up with this new technology. Right. So there you need to, people need to understand, okay, I don't know how to do that, but you do. Teach me or tell me or show me.
So to your point, about the seniors, that's one of the things that's a part of my platform. I was thinking about the youth and the digital divide because of COVID, and certain communities don't have access to, internet or good internet services. And in that, I thought about all the seniors. And a lot of the seniors that I would talk to, they didn't have email. Mm-hmm. They don't have computers or know how to use them.
Or smartphones.
Yeah, and I think it's critical. It's unfortunate. Well, it's not unfortunate. I mean, they're just older and born in a different time.
We're not up to date on technology. Your smartphone and my dumb phone.
It's not dumb. However, relieving that digital divide, being a resource to slowly but surely serve the senior community. I went to a senior building in the last couple of weeks as I've been campaigning, and they had this very archaic computer sitting there. And this was like their computer room.
Lotus 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, probably was. And I said, does this thing work? And one of the seniors said, no, it doesn't work. I said, why is it here? How great would it be to have someone come in and do computer lessons for a few hours and put laptops there for people to be able to use to understand what to do? The digital divide, yes, it's about the Wi-Fi and the wiring, but it's also taking that personal time. And I think having someone by their side and I think breaking down, the intergenerational gap. So when I worked for the County Board of Health, I did gardening. Well, I was responsible for some gardening projects that I did. And one of the projects that I facilitated with a resident, she was a middle-aged woman in her late 50s, early 60s in Cleveland Heights. And her street, there were a lot of seniors, and their biggest issue were the kids being loud, making noise, people feared, didn't want to come outside. And I said, well, what about this idea? Since we're trying to do this garden project, why don't we try to do this intergenerational connection and have the seniors garden with the younger kids? You get to know who Tommy is. You get to know JJ. You get to know Sarah, Kathy. You get to know those kids. And you guys are working together. They no longer fear you as being the grumpy person saying, get off of my lawn. Mm-hmm. And you no longer fear them thinking they're going to harm you in some way. And to me, it adds value to the community, right? Because now when I walk by, I know that's Miss Kay's house. I know I can't talk loud, be fussing walking by there. And we're planting cucumbers. Mm-hmm. How awesome is that? You're teaching them how to garden. Those things are so critical. Again, another part of making community.
Grandchildren and surrogate grandparents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And blending. Would you talk to your mom that way? The way you're talking to me? I don't think so. That's our generation. Well, I appreciate your honesty about everything. And Vince, if he were still here, would say, that boy, girl. Actually, he would say, you do a good job.
Say, you know what, kid? Okay.
He was very proud of you. And I still think he's extremely proud of you. And I'm not going to go too far on that because I'll cry.
Yeah, you'll make me cry too.
I'm proud of you. And I really don't care what other people say or do. You're doing a damn good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wish you the best of luck.